Hey everybody, it's Scott from WhatCulture.com, and I'm here to do a little review of the NES Classic Mini. Now, Nintendo were friendly enough to send this over to us, and it comes packed with 30 games. Now, there's 30 iconic titles on here, so I've spent the better part of a good few days playing through every last one of them, and I've decided to give it a little review. I'm going to call it NES, you can call it NES, you can call it whatever you want. Shout that out in the comments, because I guarantee someone's already got annoyed that I've mispronounced it, so you just let me know. So there are a few things that you need to know about this, the biggest of all being that it's just loaded with charm. The size of it, I mean, it's a handheld thing to begin with, so the sheer form factor being reduced from the original 1985 release just makes this such an appealing looking product before you even get to the game side of things. Now, there are a couple of negatives that are worth addressing that'll stand out straight away. First up, the controller length, the cord length that comes with the NES is incredibly short. Now, I'm going to go with the idea that this was actually intentional. I know it seems like a bit of a ridiculous design decision, but at the end of the day, it does force you to huddle around the console, huddle around your TV, and just play the games the way that you probably did when you were growing up. Now, depending on what you played when you were growing up, that's going to resonate in different ways, but for me, being huddled around a NES or being huddled around something like a Mega Drive or whatever is just such a brilliant experience that rekindling that in any form is just a fantastic way to play games. Now, the console does only come with one controller, so sadly you'll have to buy an additional one if you want to play the array of two-player things that are built into here. Now, that level of Nintendo charm that we tend to associate with their products is all over this thing. Like, granted, I've already mentioned the form factor, but the console's main dashboard does have a lovely little theme playing in the background. And if you leave the console for a while, its screensaver is Mario and Luigi playing underneath, hitting some boxes and just running around. There's a general feeling of just love, just so much love that's gone into the console, and you can feel it. Now, the system is USB powered, which I thought was a little bit weird, as you don't get the plug attachment with it. You'll have to find something that has a USB out to charge it. I've just been using my PS4. I've just sort of had the NES on the side, plug it into the PS4 and just use the rest mode to power it. Maybe that's a solution for you guys too. Otherwise, you'll have to find some sort of USB plug to use alongside it. But on the plus side, it does come with an HDMI cable, allowing for up-res versions of a lot of the games. You can tell that they've been cleaned up, and there are 3 vision modes with this thing too. So you can have like standard 4:3 as it used to be. You can have a CRT filter, which makes it look even more old school, or you can go pixel to pixel and just map it to your TV, although that will result in some stretched images. Regardless, it's a perfect way to play these games, and even things like Kirby's Adventure come complete with the same cartridge style screen tearing as it like struggles to load the world in. I guess Nintendo were just being that authentic about it. Onto the games themselves, and it's a highly curated list. I mean, Nintendo have handpicked 30 very specific titles, including the likes of the Super Mario trilogy, Donkey Kong 1 and 2, Legend of Zelda 1 and 2, and a handful of others. There's honestly this, if you were going to recommend the NES to anybody anyway, chances are you would pick games that are on this list. From the casual to the hardcore, you've got Super Mario and Pac-Man, all the way up to the likes of Ninja Gaiden and Mega Man 2 and Castlevania. There really is something for everyone. I think they wanted to provide a selection of games that would let people just sit down and play, but also if you really want to, reignite the hardcore gamer inside of you and test yourself with something that's more challenging, you can dive into the likes of Mega Man and just get your ass handed to you over and over again and play those things for a few hours, ranking yourself up as you go. Now, one of the biggest positives is that the console does allow for save states, rather like the Virtual Console on the Wii or the Wii U or whatever. And if you jump out of a game, you hit the reset button on the console and you can just lock one of your saves in. You can have 4 slots per game, which is really, really cool. And you can resume whenever you want. It doesn't matter where you are in the game, you can create a save state to resume whenever you like. I have one just before the first Piston Honda fight on Punch-Out, because that thing is impossible. Although this is a console review, I do think it's worth pointing out that old school difficulty curves are way sharper than the ones you'll experience these days, unless you're something like a Dark Souls fan or whatever. And as much as you can sit down with your new NES Mini and go, right, I'm going to play Legend of Zelda, I've heard a lot about it, just be prepared for that game just having your expectations for breakfast until you get used to the mechanics and the weapons and the progression. Carry that throughout the vast majority of games here. You really need to get used to them. So in terms of my personal 5 games to play, you're already going to go out there, you're already going to play Super Mario, Pac-Man, Zelda, Final Fantasy. So here are just 5 picks from me that, some of them are iconic, some of them are just personal recommendations, but I'd definitely shout these out as 5 that you need to play. First up at number 5 is Star Tropics. Now, Final Fantasy is included on the list, and that is obviously one of the most prolific RPGs of all time, but Star Tropics, released in 1990, tends to be just cast by the wayside as something of like a Zelda clone. Although it does have a lot of character, the art style is very, very cool, It has a lot more life to it than sort of the original Zelda, just based on the fact that the developers were given enough time to look at Zelda, analyze what went right in that game, and then provide their own spin on it. Number 4, I'm going to recommend Punch-Out! Now, this is one of the most iconic games of all time, but the version that's on the NES Mini isn't actually the Mike Tyson one. It's the re-release featuring Mr. Dream, simply because Tyson's contract ran out and Nintendo had to re-release the game featuring a unlicensed character. Gameplay is still rock solid though, very timing based, very reaction based. It's very rewarding though, and just working your way through the opponents, playing as Little Mac and just like taking on these huge hulking mounds of meat that pass as fighters on the other side of the ring, defeating them is just like, it feels great. Punch-Out! Has not aged a day. Number 3 is Ninja Gaiden, and obviously through its more modern installments, you might already be familiar with the sort of difficulty curve that comes with a Ninja Gaiden game, but this is the original, the one that really set things in motion, and it comes with one of the best control schemes of such an old school game, allowing you to do backflips and spins, throw shurikens, slice guys in half. It's a very, very brutal game, known for its difficulty, but if you can get through it, it's definitely a very worthwhile experience in the end. Number 2 is Metroid, and although Super Metroid would be the one that would be held up a hell of a lot higher on the SNES, this original version does introduce you to someone like Samus, her abilities, the world itself. It's very much iconic from top to bottom, and you simply need to see where a character like Samus, a series like Metroid, originated. For my number 1 spot, I'm picking Kirby's Adventure. It's one of the most recent titles that's included on the lineup of all 30 games, and you get a real feel for how far Nintendo had come between Super Mario Bros. And Kirby. The graphics are just gorgeous, the pixel art style is beautiful, Kirby himself animates so well, and your general roster of abilities, I mean, you can swallow pretty much any enemy and take their abilities, so whether that's a sword, fire breath, or just some sort of crazy Dragon Ball Z style screen-filling special. Kirby's just badass, man. Like, you have a sliding kick and everything, and it's just great. There's a pure level of joy that runs throughout all of Kirby that I absolutely love. So that's my roundup of the NES Classic Mini. I was thoroughly blown away by it. I think the fact that Nintendo have really gone out of their way to handpick specific games and specific franchises really highlights why this is the perfect package. Regardless of if you're an old school fan or a newcomer, I definitely think this is the best way to experience these games, and I highly recommend the console and every single one of the games within it. Let me know in the comments which games you're looking forward to playing, whether you're going to be picking up the console itself, and if there are any old school favorites that you can't wait to play again. I've been Scott from WhatCulture.com, and I'll see you soon.